Good evening, everybody. So we'll come for the next edition of our webinar series. And today we'll be discussing the concept of what is called as a perfect process. Is there something called as a perfect process at all? Or is it utopian? Is it realistic? How do we look at a perfect process? What are the ingredients or characteristics of a perfect process? So today's topic essentially is going to focus on this concept of perfect process. What is this process and what are the attributes of a perfect process? What are those ways in processes? And what measurements we have to use for perfect process? And how do we move towards perfection? This is what we are planning to discuss today. And today's webinar will be presented by Mr. Vasudevan. So he is the Vice President Operations of Savafair Management Services. With more than 12 plus years with Savafair and 30 plus years of industrial experience in quality and maintenance. He was Safaji and he remains Safaji, of course I should say, served the Indian Air Force as a ground crew engineer. He handled many initiatives in Savafair in cost and operational excellence, managed initiative across industries and domains and sizes. He led the MSME and PC lean cluster operations at Ahmednagar, Nashik, Pune and Trichy, which is mainly instrumental for getting recognition by Government of India as the best performing lean consultant. He is a lean and QC trainer and a mechanical engineer with MBA in operations. So a quick protocols. Please mute your audio. For full screen view, click the three dots at the right bottom, change the layout to choose the spotlight, type your questions in chat box. The last 15 minutes we'll have for Q&A. Over to you, Mr. Vasudevan. You can take over.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Hariharan. Good evening, all. Is the slide visible now? And am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. See, the topic that we are going to see is the in search of perfect process of the day. We do many activities, processes, be it our professional, office, a factory, a home. We do carry a set of processes. Now, and they do yield results within us. Now, these are they perfect processes? Are they attaining the desired results that we intend to look for? Is the topic that we are going to see today. Start with the 4P framework of lean principle, with purpose being the first thing, which of course expresses the customer value, where a right thing, right quantity, right time, right level, everything being seen as a customer value in terms of purposes. To achieve these purposes, the means to achieve is coming through the processes, that is methods to attain this purpose, which is to be aligned. The processes are to be aligned to the purpose, the second P of course. Now, the execution of processes is being performed by the people who are the key driver of the results. So the third P also has to align to processes and as well as to the purposes. The people are to be aware of the purposes. If the three alignments do happen, then the fourth alignment, which results into prosperity or prosper, the triple bottom line. This is the basic premises with which we operate upon the lean principles here, adopted from the lean model of James Omack. Now, when we talk about purpose, the value should be greater than the price, which is called as customer value creation. Whereas in terms of processes, price should be greater than the cost, which is called as an economic value creation. To attain profitability, to reach profitability, we need to sustain the inequality of value should be greater than the price, should be greater than the cost. And the people should be, of course, be thinking on that note. So today, since we are talking about the processes, I am just highlighting the processes part of it for the day. The agenda is of the 3-part. The first part will deal with understanding the process, what exactly is a process, and what are the attributes. Of course, 8 of them are there to understand how a perfect process can be identified. Then the second part would explore through the perfect processes, measurements, how do we identify the perfect process, at what level we have reached, or is there anything that we need to improve upon, how much to improve upon, we discussed there in the second part. And how do we approach towards managing towards perfection will be the final part for the day. Going to the first part, what exactly is a process? A process is a sequence of steps which deals with the what of the part, what part of the activity. Now, it has to be performed correctly, which explains the how part of it. And in the proper sequence, the way it has to be done in a proper sequence in order to create value for a customer. So, to sum it up, it's a sequence of steps to be performed correctly in a proper sequence and create value for the customer. Now, taking an example, if you look at this, it's a simple process which contains many activities, right from logging in a particular IRCTC account, then indicating the station from station to the journey date, the class of travel, and then we choose certain trains out of that, and then see where the availability for the intended day. And once we select upon, we pay and then pay the OTP. There are so many steps. They are in a sequence. They are to be performed correctly and in the proper sequence so that we finally achieve or get the ticket in the process. So this is how a process it is to be. Professor Shoji Shiba, who is a renowned TQM expert and is also a chief advisor for a VLFM program, advocates 3 eyes of Buddha for these processes, where he says the first eye is called a control eye, where he talks about maintain what you do. In the sense, to control this particular aspect, you need to control the processes, you need to do same thing again and again, repeatability, so that then only this will lead to the next eye, which is called an improvement eye. The second eye. In the second eye, if you see, this is the stability part here and the improvement. And then again, it has to be continued for some time in the stability mode. Then again, the improvement. So every day, every process, every month, every week, the improvement has to continue. And there has to be a stability which is going to be combined in the second eye, which will lead through to the third eye called as a breakthrough. Now, all these 3 can happen simultaneously, can coexist, and they are parallel to each other, which means they are not dependent on each other, or anything, any eye can take place anywhere in the processes. Now, what is a perfect process? The perfect process, which will have about 8 attributes, which is called a valuable, capable, available, adequate, flexible. If these 5 attributes are there available in a perfect processes, then this leads to flowed, pulled, and leveled. Now, these are the 8 attributes which will tell us how perfect the process is in its own way. So, which we will try to identify in the next part of this perfect process. Valuable is being the first one. What is valuable in a process? Which means, are we providing value to the customer where the customer perceives a V greater than P is what we need to see. Which means, there should be no waste in the process. Muda is one of the 3 M, which is called as waste, and there are 7 of them, devised by Taichi Ono in 1988. They are 1. Defects, which is of course we all know. Overproduction, producing more than what is required is known as overproduction. Waiting for material or manpower or machine for some reason is called waiting, which is a waste again. Then the 4th one is transport. Unnecessary transportation from one place to another place than what is required is a waste again. Inventory, additional stocks, excess capacity are treated as waste here. Unnecessary motions, like more than what is required, like in aesthetically or otherwise, if the extra motions reduces the output, so that is also being considered as the waste. And finally, inappropriate extra processing, which also results into rework or unnecessary inspections. And inappropriate additional processing is also known as extra processing. And the eighth waste, which has been included to the Toyota handbook later, much later, which also talks about a non-utilized creativity of the people. Like, this is also to be considered. Provided the people, if they are not applying ideas, if they are not suggesting anything, so non-utilization of the creativity or the talent or the skill of the people, if it is not used, also it's be considered as the waste. So, goal of the VSM, value stream mapping, is to identify and eliminate all the waste from the process, that is, all the moolas from the processes. So, to identify if a process is valuable or not valuable, we take the help of value stream mapping, which is, of course, a diagnostic visual tool. Now, this tool exactly maps the set and the sequence of activities that are happening in a process. And it will also include all the actions, communications, and the material movements from start to end, which will talk about a product or a service, which are again valued by the customer, from raw material to the delivery. That is, from conception to delivery across the entire value chain. This is what a value stream mapping can give us. Showing you the glimpse of the value stream mapping, where you will be able to see the customer on the right side, whose details are available here. There is a production control office here in the company, and the material supplier, who is going to, on the left hand side, who is going to supply 500 feet coils on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The information given here. Similarly, the customer vehicle will also go once from the plant, and the processes are dictated here, and the process box is also detailed here with the manpower, the available inventory in between the stages, and how it is being shipped. So the entire detail of the plant is being put on a piece of paper as to see how the value is being delivered or not being delivered. Now, what you are seeing here is the timeline where the inventory days have been calculated here as non-value adding days, and the value addition days are basically the cycle times here, which adds up to 188 seconds in a production lead time of about 23.6 days, which means the material, the product, it spends only about 3 minutes and 8 seconds in a lead time of about 23.6 days. So with this, we'll be able to see how much value is being created or how much value is being destroyed in the process. So this value mapping is always done for a product family, which processes steps from and towards customer, and is a closed circuit of demand and response. Now, how as a client we are able to supply to the customer in due time is being seen here. Now, whatever delays or anything, now any delays here in the process box, any inefficiencies which will be identified as bursts, improve on the process to reduce the lead time and to improve the process time, and thereby supply it to the customer on time. So VSM per se is only a diagnostic tool which will only tell you what needs to be done, where it needs to be done, how it's going to be applied through a different methodology, of course. Turning to C is the book where you can refer about value stream mapping for further information. Now, coming to the capable, the second attribute of the thing, which talks about the other two M's, which is also a waste, Mura and Muri, which is nothing but, Mura means imbalanced, uneven or irregular, which is fluctuating basically. Muri is overburden or otherwise a stray. Now, the examples of Mura, like for example, variation in quality, like 200 ppm, 500 ppm on other days, 600 ppm on other day. Like if there is a fluctuation in quality in terms of raw material or during inspection or in the final inspection, unbalanced capacities between the sources, like machine sources, when the during in between the processes, one is being able to produce 5 pieces per hour, another is able to produce 10 pieces per hour. This is called unbalanced capacity. Improper team composition, too busy in one area, like In the month end, if you see the dispatch area will be very, very busy in dispatching the product what has been manufactured over the month, whereas the manufacturing side will be idle. So this is also a Mura, which is an inconsistency and fluctuating demand, like given by the customer. Similarly, on the Muri side, it will be strain. Anything that strains your posture by sitting or lack of proper tools, you are working with inappropriate tools, thereby creating strains, strained postures. Wherever automation is possible and manual working is happening, that means a strain. Design, because of design strain happening. So all these are going to be strain, which is a part of your capability of the processes. Basically, Six Sigma deals with the capability of the things. What exactly is the capability of the process? It's not capability of the person actually, basically. It's the capability of the process itself. Whether it can be performed in the same way and the same result every time, or is it going to be meeting the specifications every time the same. And ability of the process to produce within that specification limits. Now, specification limits are going to be the upper specification limits and the lower specification limits for every tolerances, for any value. Now, in the first case, if you see here, the sample parameter distributions, they are unstable processes. They are outside USL and LSL. Whereas in the second instance, it is within that LSL and USL. So it talks about variability reduction in particular. Now, there are two measures for that. One is going to be the process capability, which is a range difference of USL and LSL to be divided by 6 sigma, where sigma is expected standard deviation. Now, the process capability is going to be talking about only one dimension, that is going to be talking about the direction, in the sense whether this process is meeting or not meeting the requirements, and it will not address the process average, whether it is centered around the target value. On the other hand, process capability index, which will act in both, in physics parlance, if you say, it acts in both magnitude and direction, which will talk about not only about the process variation, also considers about the location of the process average. Whereas CPK considers the lower of the two, of CPL or CPU, which is X minus LSL upon 3 sigma, or USL upon minus X upon 3 sigma, whichever is going to be lower than these things. In case of CP equals to being 1, the process is considered to be stable. CP which is less than 1, then the process is unstable and it will incur defects. CP greater than 1 will talk about, yes, the process is stable, but you can expect defects there. Moving on to the third part, availability. Available talks about the third application. What we are talking about is the total productive maintenance for as a case testing case for the process of availability. Can this step every time, if I am been able to perform on a machine, can I be performed and in the standard cycle time? So this talks about the available part, availability events, whether the equipment is available for the process, and also talks about the productivity part, standard cycle time. So there are applications like overall equipment effectiveness, mean time between failure, and mean time to repair. These are the three measures which is being used. That overall equipment effectiveness is the prime measure, which will talk about availability, productivity, and quality. And this MTBF and MTTR is a subset of the particular availability process, where it talks about the breakdown aspects of the machine, which is a measure of MTBF and MTTR. Having said that, since we are opting or trying to move towards perfection, our aim should be to move away from preventive maintenance and towards maintenance prevention, which means, yes, preventive maintenance is being done based on certain measurements to make the processes perfect. But the idealistic situation would be to move towards maintenance prevention, as if there should be no maintenance activity, yet the machinery should be available all the time. Now, talking about this overall equipment effectiveness, it's a prime measure in TPM. And if effectiveness of the TPM is being measured through OEE, it's the overall framework as well as for the production efficiency. And it follows this Six Sigma model, DMA IC, which means define, measure, analyze, improve, and control model, where it will do everything. And it also enables the maintenance decisions proactively. Just to give you a glimpse of how a OEE chart in terms of time, it's going to be there. The green tab, which is on the top, which depicts a particular day, which is about 1380 minutes, leaving the policy breaks of 60 minutes. Now, how these 1380 minutes are being put into use is being measured in OEE. Of course, what we are talking about is the downtime loss, which is predominantly about the breakdown and about the changeover. Now, how effectively our machine has been put into use is a ratio that we are talking about in this particular aspect. Finally, when we talk about the speed loss and quality loss, it talks about the OEE at 73%, considering the example what is being given here. It measures availability, productivity, quality. So multiplication of all these three factors gives you the OEE, and always higher the OEE, better it is, which means the machine is available all the time. 85% or 90% means 90% of the times the machine is available to us in terms of for producing the other measure, mean time between failure and mean time to repair is mean time between failure measures the frequency of failures, which will be designated as uptime upon frequency. For example, in a month of 720 hours, if we consider that 640 hours were available to us with about 4 failures, which means the MTBF will be about 160 hours. This 160 hours means the time between any 2 failures is considered as 160 hours. And MTBF is always 10 hours. Higher the MTBF, the better it is. Which means if it approaches towards infinity or higher, then it is better for this purpose. And MTTR, on the other hand, it measures the maintainability factor, which is opposite to this downtime upon frequency. Now, 80 hours were considered as the downtime in the example with 4 failures, which means each time that we attempt to repair, it takes about 20 hours. So in this case, MTTR, if it is lower, it will be better, which means it should tend to 0. Now, this MTTR includes the time the machine breakdown has been reported from that particular time till the inspection of maintenance people coming and seeing, assessing the extent of the damage, breakdown, whatever it is, and the requirements of spares, procuring or provisioning the requirement of spares from stores or from the market, coming and installing and attending it to it, and making the machine run again till such time, from the machine stoppage till such time the machine is put back into MTTR time is counted. So this time, if it is lower, better it is. So MTBF should be higher, better it is, and MTTR should be lower. It's a graphical representation. Here, just to give you an example, like there are about 13 machines which are being measured for MTBF and MTTR. So anything over the blue dotted line, any bar which is above this are considered to be the better machines in terms of MTBF which they are performing. So you can come to a decision quickly as to which machines are having a lower MTBF basically. And similarly, in case of MTTR, we need to see from this particular graph, anything above the average MTTR is going to be the cause of concern for us and cause of interest for us to address that particular factor. Moving on to the fourth attribute of perfect process, this is adequate. Adequate, as the name suggests, it talks about the adequacy of the process, which in fact is being focused here in theory of constraints. And also raises the question about a particular process, is there enough capacity to perform the process without waiting? That's more important. Or if there is too much capacity, I mean, if you remember, too much capacity is also a wastage. If there is too much capacity and there is a need to add them in the large increments. If you remember, about 3 weeks before, we had this discussion, dilemma of capacity creation, whether to add capacity or not to add capacity. This is basically to test the process if the process is adequate to carry enough. So we need to have a capacity assessment. And more predominantly, the capacity addition or optimization of the capacity needs to be modularized. In the sense, if the capacity to be added, we need to identify the process where the capacity is to be added, and that too in portions. Not that because capacity commitment, once it is committed, it's not going to be withdrawn back. So ramping up or ramping down of capacity has to be in terms of modularization. Or in terms of a power plant, it can be the option of not operating a particular turbine or a particular boiler out of the total thing is going to be operationalization there. So that kind of modularization can also be done or identified. And more importantly, finally, the capacity should lag the demand, which means the capacity should be slightly lesser than whatever the market is demanding from us. So this is going to be the test for the adequacy, to test our processes whether they are adequate enough. Moving on to the final thing on the main attributes, flexibility. Now, flexible in a process. Why flexibility is required? Because we need to handle a lot of varieties, a lot of volumes, higher volumes or lower volumes, quality, price, and the different delivery rates, different customers. So the demands are going to be different. So when we are talking about the flexibility of a process, we are talking about the 4 dimensions here, which means any product can be manufactured on any machine, the second dimension, by anybody. That means any people, any person, at any space. Now, the space is being considered as the 4th dimension in view of the present situation of COVID-19, where the social distancing, the entire layout needs to be reorganized, whether our plant is having that kind of space to be flexible enough to have this setup and yet produce and meet the customer demand is what the test is going to be for this flexibility. Now, whether my process can support labor and capital linearity. Yes, we have already discussed that. Labor linearity means ramping up of labor or ramping down of labor. Similarly, capital linearity is ramping up of machinery or ramping down of machinery. Is going to be talking about the flexible as per the situation, as per the order, as per the demand. And similarly, anybody who can handle this process. Anybody who can handle this process means everybody should be trained. So that the multi-skilling point is what we are going to discuss. Now, to be flexible for manufacturing any product, which will essentiate the process changeover from one product to the other, has to be within no time and with no effect on quality. Which means there is a process called single minute exchange of die, which will tell us how much time that we are taking. Or rather, which will also tell us how to improve, which is a set of techniques to perform the setup and changeover within 10 minutes. The second thing for flexibility of personnel is skill matrix, to have an idea about our manpower as to how many people are trained on different kinds of skills, whether they are trained on setting up the machine, they are trained on doing multiple operations, handling multiple products and multiple machines. So this kind of flexibility has to be there in terms of manpower. And space, as we have already discussed, if we have to distinguish the dispatch and the receipts, the machine layouts, the distance between two machines. So all these things have to be available for producing that kind of flexibility. The line, manufacturing lines have to be flexible enough to be taking care of this particular space dimension as well. Now, once these 5 operations, 5 attributes are identified through all these things, and if they are, then only we will be able to flow the product throughout the processes, and we can pull the process and level it. The level is the situation where we can think of our attaining the heaven actually. That's the final perfection. That is what we are talking about. Once we reach the level perfection, then only we are considered to be, or our processes are in perfect condition. When we talk about flow, we analyze our processes. Are they following a tight sequence? Tight sequence means the continuous flow from one machine to the other machine without any stoppages. Now, without any flow barriers. Now, what are these flow barriers? Flow barriers are going to be a breakdown in a particular machine, absenteeism of a manpower, power cuts, or the batch size itself is very, very high from upstream to a downstream, so the other machine have to wait. So all these flow barriers will be identified through VSMs, and when we do all this valuable, capable, available, adequate, and flexible, once we are able to achieve, and then we are able to flow through this. So this is where the test comes, whether with little or no waiting, if you are able to make flow the product through the processes, is what needs to be seen here, which is a test for this thing, and also a core concern of Toyota production system. Moving on to this next one, pull. which is a signaling thing. Pull is a process where the downstream process extracts the products or services from the upstream. Basically, it is going to be a command from the next downstream step within the time available. For example, there are two processes. One is a supplying process called A and the customer process called B. Now, supplying process will be keep on supplying and keeping it in this kind of a supermarket where it will be stocking it. And at the same rate, if there is a withdrawal thing, or rather withdrawal process is happening, or rather the next process is taking the product, which means the supermarket is storing the inventory and there is no disruption in flow, and B is actually pulling from A, which means this process B is able to perform at the same speed as process A. So there is always a pull happens, so it is keep on pulling, so A has to keep on supplying. And the advantage of pull only is that inventory is going to be lesser in case of a pull. On the other hand, if there is a push, for example, if A is keep on pushing at the supermarket and the offtake of B process is not that much, the inventory will keep on piling between A and B, or rather in front of B. So pull is another attribute which signifies that the process is perfect when on the command of the downstream processes, when the products are moving in a streamlined thing, this pull is advantageous than the push. So the final thing, which is the leveling, there's a tool known as Heijunka, which basically talks about two types of leveling. One is volume leveling, and the other is type leveling. In terms of volume leveling, in a week of, let's say, in a week of $100 on 5 days, demand leveling by volume means every day 20 products have to be produced. This is called a volume leveling. Though the customer demand is going to be 8 on Monday, first day, second day 3, third day 5, like that. There is going to be a fluctuation of demand, but demand leveling for the supply side will be to distribute the total order volume over the particular period, be it a week or a fortnight or a month, and level it to the volume. The second leveling is called as type. Now we are not dealing with only one type of product. We are dealing with multiple types of product. In that sense, what we do is, like as described in the Heijunka box here, this box is of 1 hour pitch time interval, let us assume. Product A to product F. Now, product A, as per this box, the cards are being placed here, which will be pulled. That means every 1 hour, one piece of A has to be produced. Every 1 hour, 2 pieces of B, and every alternate hour C, and every 2 hours D, and then leave 1 hour, and then 2 hours D. So something, and no production for F, because there is no order. Now, this kind of leveling is known as product leveling, or the mix leveling. Now, why this should be done, and when it can be done? When all these attributes are available and when the processes are perfect, then only we will be able to do such kind of leveling. In the sense, now this will be only when this leveling is done, the products can be supplied to customer on time. Otherwise, what happens now in the case of only when we produce only A or B, C and D and E, in case if the machine breaks down, we will not be able to produce this and supply. So only when we level and produce every day every part, or every day every product, then only we will be able to provide value to the customer. This is actually the third concern of the Toyota production system. It attempts to uneven the customer pool into an even and predictable process. Now, when we talk about leveling further, the Heijunka, or the leveling aspect, is characterized by 3 attributes further: predictability, stability, and flexibility. Now, when we talk about predictability, which focuses upon a demand leveling, it approaches with the 3 different things. Management of sales pipeline, which means from the door-to-door service, we go and gather information as to who requires what, and we convert into an order. And then we are able to predict that particular thing. This is called demand leveling, where we are able to level that particular demand. from the past record, how every customer has been ordering us, we can develop a EOQ kind of a thing and tell our customer that this is the way you've been doing, so we are leveling it to you and serving it to you. And the third aspect is keeping a near FG or FG, I mean finished goods, in stock, so that whenever there is this thing, so we act upon that particular buffer. That is how we level this demand from the customer, so that there is no fluctuations or shocks, so that this system is being sustained. This leveling is being sustained. On the other hand, supply leveling, which we have discussed earlier, leveling it by volume or leveling it by type or by both. So this gives you the kind of stability. It is more important because on one day you have a lot of work, on the other day you will be idling without leveling. So once we level, everybody is happy doing what they are expected to do, and by volume and by type leveling lends you that kind of stability. The third aspect, of course, which comes through our flexibility, which is nothing but a quick changeover. If these three things can also be there, it will be helping us in terms of leveling. Now, summing up all these things, how a perfect process house would look like when we talk about all those initiatives and the attributes is going to be like this: the Toyota way visual philosophy, visual management, stable and standardized process, talks about SOP, level to production, which is what just recently discussed about Hygienka. This is our base going to be, and supported by the pillars like a just-in-time pillar and Jidoka installation quality pillars with various other aspects. With a continuous improvement forming of the rooms and the quality forms of the roof. So a combination of all these things are being attempted in the search of a perfect process, so that we get this perfect process and we are able to provide this value to the customer. Coming to the final part of the agenda, that is managing towards perfection. A perfect process in summary, how it should be. There should be no muda in any step or linkage. The 8 waste should not be there. Then only a process is going to be called as a perfect process. And every step is completely valuable without any waste. And they are completely perfectly capable of producing within the specifications, perfectly available all the time, which means I put on switch on my machine, the machine is available for us perfectly, exactly adequate or just about lagging that particular demand, and highly flexible in terms of machine, manpower, product, whichever way, space. And every step is connected by continuous flow. There is no flow barrier in whatsoever manner, be it a breakdown, be it a changeover, or be it any the large batch sizing. There has to be a continuous flow and a noiseless pull. I mean, continuous pulling is always there. That means every other downstream process is uptaking every time, and maximal leveling in terms of volume as well as the types. A Toyota view, what it says is brilliant results from average people managing brilliant processes. The example could be talking about this particular team, which we all know, the yellow people, yellow jersey people, CSK, who were not in the scene for almost 2 years, and when they came back, they were touted as the oldest team. Their team is not having any this thing. They'll not be able to win. But what has happened in 2018 is that they have won this IPL on that particular year, which only goes to show the processes from the average people or the so-called old team has won against all the youngest teams, which goes to prove that brilliant results from average people managing brilliant processes. On the other hand, from the brilliant people, RCB, everyone, I mean, you name anyone in this team, everyone is brilliant in the last 10 years or 12 years. They're all brilliant people, but they have been managing broken processes, so they were getting average results, which is also that not a single time that they could win this IPL. So this applies, this process application or approaching towards perfect process applies to any field, be it your home front or professional front, be it a service industry or a manufacturing, everywhere this applies. Now, managing towards perfection is going to be 3 ways, which means the performance metrics with incentives from the top It has to be there. And the team empowerment at the bottom work. Like it has to be a bottoms up approach. The team has to be empowered in doing things or making process towards achieving towards perfection. Similarly, the top management has to give the blessings in terms of the metrics and incentives from the top. And again, the company has to support and deploy the attributes of like valuable, capable, available, adequate, and flexible, thereby flowing, pulling, and leveling in the middle. Now, this is a challenge, and the sustenance is a challenge, is the key challenge to everybody. And that is why we always say that we are in quest or search of the perfect process. That's why I specifically put those 3 dots at the end. That means there is nothing called perfect. We always strive to reach to the next level. We always strive to that kind of perfection so that we improve upon from one stage to the other stage. Or you can draw a parallel here to the second eye of Buddha as proposed by Dr. Professor Shoji Shiba. So this search will be on and we need to be continuing this. With that note, I end my presentation and open to the questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Vasudevan. Thank you for the session. We have a few questions. In fact, the two questions from Mr. Hariharan.
Yes, sir.
Hariharan, I'm sure you may be remembering Mr. Vasudevan, right? Yeah, Vasu has interacted with Mr. Hariharan.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah. He asks, can these principles be applied to infrequent activities like annual books closing?
Sorry, sir, come again. Your voice is slightly on this.
Can these principles be applied to infrequent activity like annual books closing?
We are talking about in terms of accounting, right?
Yes, accounting closing process. Annual accounts closing.
Annual accounting closing process, as I understand, when we are leveling, this talks about the leveling kind of aspect thing, instead of doing it at one particular occasion. Yes, I think we can think of closing it quarterly, like every 3 months that we are able to close this and see how it can be so that our load or burden is leveled upon this entire process of 1 year. Is what I can think of.
Vasu, may I add a couple of things here?
Yeah, if you sir, please.
Yeah. Mr. Hariharan, a few points here in this case. It is like Mr. Vasudevan said, we are in search of a perfect process. I will start the answer with the second statement of Toyota Way, which talks about create continuous flow to surface problems. So meaning, if you are going to create a continuous flow, the process has to be valuable, capable, available, adequate, flexible. Till such time we don't reach that valuable, capable, available, adequate, flexible, we can't be in a position to achieve a perfect process. So that means, is it like something like utopian level, we can't reach that level at all? If you take the case of an account closing process, one part is where you are evened out the whole situation of what you call, before your automation earlier, we used to have ledger posting, then we used to have ledger extraction, trial balance, and move towards my P&L balance sheet and everything. Now, with the seamless process, data entry has become reasonably single piece flow. Okay. When it comes to closing, in fact, by monthly closing, we try to do that consistency throughout, like Mr. Vasudevan said, the quarterly closing as well. This is one part of it. The other part is primarily, if you look at these 8 principles one by one, all these 8 principles are applicable somewhere or other in the case of accounting process. Let us look at it quickly. Valuable. Am I doing a defect-free process? So any error I am having in my posting, any error I am having in my accounting, or not following a procedure is going to be primarily a valuable, is going to be under question. Second is capable, which is primarily the consistency. Consistency in terms of my reconciliation, consistency in terms of my validation of closing balances with suppliers and customers, consistency in my inventory valuation, inventory stock taking. So this is typically capable. Available, whether my system is available enough for me to run these processes. See, especially in the case of an IT system, the availability is definitely getting twofold. One is my IT system availability for running this process. Because here and if there are going to be multiple other aspects going to be also impacted, then our process is going to get impacted as well. Are available in the context of people. For example, absenteeism or attrition is a very big factor in the case of an accounting function. So, can my process run even if a particular person is not working, is not there with me? So, available. Adequate is my capacity enough for me to handle this. Is it driven by the transaction volume? Is it driven by the complexity of transaction? Flexible is essentially the multi-skilling possibility in our workforce. So can I create a multi-skilling, thereby the workload can be evenly distributed among the various people. So if you look at in that context, this is applicable in any kind of a process, we can apply this principle. I hope it answers your question, sir. Second question, Mr. Vasudevan Hariharan has asked again, then we'll go to the other one.
Yeah.
The question is, any examples of successful application in public policy areas like public distribution system, ration shop, can we apply it there, or government people interactions?
Sir, at least if I can remember the latest example, like in COVID-19, at least the people are being given some colored cards where people are asked to report to that particular ration shop on a certain different days, where they are in the process of social distancing, they are minimizing the people and leveling the load each day, and the PDS shops are expected to handle a particular volume every day there. The recent cases in COVID, like where people are approaching this ration shops and the essential shops. So which is where the government people have been interacting in this particular fashion in the way of distributing colored cards on every day, so that red color card will visit on a Monday, green color card will visit on a Tuesday, or like that, so on and so forth.
Okay. The third question is, Ranjan Pandey has asked a question, how much important top management support is in this case?
It is absolutely, the support should be of the highest order, in the sense, even in many of the plants, if you see the people following the Toyota production system and other things, the top management will be sitting at the middle of the factory, not be sitting at the office somewhere, where a 360-degree view of the factory is there for them to see what things are happening. Predominantly, lean management talks about bringing the problems to the surface, so everyone is involved in this process. So, in terms of top management support, yes, it has to be the highest order.
Okay. One question from Saurav Tandon. Capacity should lag demand is key here. Can you suggest any golden number like a percentage? Capacity lagging demand.
I mean, there is no such, specific percentage or a number or anything. I mean, in general, suppose, for example, just to give you a perception for that is, suppose our market demand is, let's say, 100. We can keep it at around 90 or 95 as our capacity, just to give you this thing. So, it should not be, in the sense, there is no specific benchmark or percentage to fix upon this particular thing. But it has to be, the golden rule is the capacity should lag slightly below the demand to take up. In the sense, whatever capacity which is lost or hidden in our system, if you are able to achieve these perfect processes and improve upon our processes towards perfection, then we should be unearthing those capacity, and that is one of other reasons that we should keep it at 90-95, so that we unearth the remaining to meet the market demand.
Okay. One more question from Mr. Ranjan Pandey. Mr. Vasudevan, how much of support you need from the bottom of the pyramid? I think he means about the ground level people.
Yeah, ground level people here, see, I'll give you a very specific example of lean management practicing on all these perfect processes at a very lower level and cluster level activities in which I was in charge. Like, if you have to, there is a concept called empowering people. Making people to think, making people to suggest, because they are the people who are doing things day in and day out in every process and every activities, making them accountable, making them feel that it is their process and they are doing improvement. To give them that kind of accountability and measurability, it is for them to this is also called as TEI, total employee improvement, so, empowerment, where they will be involved to make all the decisions. So involving them at every stage, making them a partner to every process, since they are going to handle day-to-day activities, it is very, very important that we should have their support also. Because the suggestions, in my entire experience, the kaizens, whatever that we were talking about in terms of improvement, were all phenomenal, coming from the people who are at the lower level echelons of the organization, who knows, who are working in the machines and so on. So they are the people to, and in fact, if they have to make their life easy, if they are make the process simple, then they should be involved and they should be doing this. And moreover, this is not only a tool or this thing, it should be a way of life actually, not only a personal life, it should be also there in the professional life, as to embracing this particular attributes and concepts to our set of things.
Okay. I think the questions, as far as questions are concerned. Okay, Vasu, you want any closing thoughts? We can close it.
No, the closing thoughts is going to be, there is, we always say a perfect process. We also defined attributes. We also have measurements or applications or tools to move towards or optimize towards that aspects. But having said that, there is nothing is perfect. Everything, whatever is perfect today may not be perfect for tomorrow. So we need to improve upon. So the improvement doesn't stop today. It is a continuous thing, and we will always be in search or a quest for a search perfect processes. My closing thoughts.
Thanks, Vasu. Thank you so much, and thanks all for joining today's webinar. And we'll come back with another topic by next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much all. Thank you.
Thank you.